I am Megan Wilson, 32 years old and a senior software engineer who has been financially supporting my family for years now. Never did I imagine that a Thanksgiving dinner would shatter everything. My parents and brother Blake have always had a special dynamic, one where I was expected to give while he was allowed to take. When Dad finally snapped the words cut deeper than any knife, "Get out. Paying bills does not make you family," he roared. Mom leaned in and whispered, "You are just jealous of your brother." I smiled calmly. "Then let him pay the $9,600. That night, I shut everything down. By morning, there were cops, tears, and complete chaos. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from in the comments and hit that subscribe button to join me for more real-life stories. Growing up in suburban Boston, our family always seemed to be struggling financially. My father, Harold Wilson, worked at a manufacturing plant until I was 12, when the economic downturn left him jobless and bitter. My mother, Diana, picked up part-time work at a local department store, but her paychecks barely covered groceries. Despite the financial strain, my parents somehow always found extra money for my brother Blake. Blake was 3 years older than me and the undisputed golden child of the family. He was average in school, average in sports, and exceptionally good at making excuses. Yet in my parents' eyes, particularly my father Blake, was destined for greatness. "He just needs time to find his path," Dad would say whenever Blake quit another job or dropped out of another community college program. Meanwhile, I buried myself in academics. I was not seeking approval, just escape. My hard work paid off when I received a full scholarship to study computer science at a prestigious university. I remember the day my acceptance letter arrived. Mom gave me a quick hug before asking if I had started dinner yet. Dad barely looked up from helping Blake with his resume after his third job loss that year. "That school is too far away," he complained when I mentioned the scholarship. "Who will help your mother around the house?" Despite their lack of enthusiasm, I went. Those 4 years away from home showed me what life could be like without constantly trying to earn love that should have been freely given. I graduated with honors and landed a job at a major tech company in Boston. I could have moved anywhere, but some misguided sense of duty pulled me back within driving distance of my family. My career took off quickly. By 28, I was a senior software engineer with a salary that seemed impossible, given where I had come from. The irony was not lost on me that my success story should have been the one my parents bragged about at family gatherings. Instead, they continued to focus on Blake and his potential. Things at home had deteriorated further during my college years. Mom developed rheumatoid arthritis, requiring expensive treatments their insurance barely covered. Dad had attempted to start his own construction business, which failed spectacularly, leaving them with substantial debt. Blake had cycled through various get-rich-quick schemes, each one requiring just a small loan from my parents to get started. When Mom called crying about possibly losing their house, I stepped in without hesitation. At first, it was just helping with a few mortgage payments. Then it was paying off a credit card. Before I knew it, I was covering their mortgage entirely, paying all utilities, funding Mom's medical treatments, and even giving them a monthly allowance for extras. Meanwhile, Blake had moved back home at 30 and was between opportunities, as Dad called it. He contributed nothing to the household expenses, but took up the most space with his opinions and complaints. He borrowed money from our parents regularly, money that actually came from me, which they never consulted me about. Every family gathering followed the same pattern. Blake would arrive late, if at all. He would dominate the conversation with tales of his latest business idea, which always seemed on the verge of massive success. My parents would hang on his every word, offering encouragement and support. If I mentioned a promotion or project at work, the subject would quickly shift back to Blake. "Megan, not everyone can have your kind of job security," Mom would say dismissively. "Your brother is taking risks to build something of his own. Those tech companies just hand out money," Dad would add. "Blake is out there hustling in the real world." The fact that my job security was financing their lives never seemed relevant to these conversations. Still, I kept showing up, kept paying, kept hoping that someday they would see me, really see me, and all I had accomplished despite their lack of support. Last Thanksgiving, I drove to their house filled with optimism. I had just received another promotion and significant bonus. I had paid off their mortgage completely as a surprise, the paperwork finalized just days before. I bought Mom a new diamond necklace to replace the one she had pawned years ago to pay for Blake's community college tuition. For Dad, I had an expensive watch to replace the one his father had given him, which he had sold during his unemployment. I even brought an additional side dish and 2 expensive bottles of wine to contribute to the dinner. I had been supporting them for over 3 years at this point. Surely this Thanksgiving would be different. Surely they would finally acknowledge my contributions and show some appreciation for all I had done. How naive I was to expect anything to change in our family dynamic. The disaster that was about to unfold would finally open my eyes to the painful truth I had been avoiding for years. The drive to my parents' home that Thanksgiving morning was filled with anticipation. The trunk of my car was loaded with gifts, groceries, and the paperwork showing their mortgage had been paid in full. 3 years of payments totaling over $120,000, all handled by me without complaint. The weight of their financial burden had been on my shoulders for so long that I barely noticed it anymore, like a backpack you get used to carrying. My phone rang through the car speakers as I turned onto their street, my friend Alicia checking in. "Are you at the House of Horrors yet?" she asked, only half joking. "Just pulling up now," I replied, parking in front of the colonial-style home that had seen better days. Despite paying their bills, I had not pushed them about home maintenance, wanting to respect their independence in some small way. "Remember what we talked about," Alicia said firmly. "You are allowed to set boundaries. They do not get unlimited access to your bank account just because they share your DNA." I know, I sighed, "but it is Thanksgiving. I just want one peaceful family dinner." "Your family would not recognize peace if it bit them on the nose," Alicia retorted. "Call me if you need an escape plan." I promised I would and ended the call, gathering bags from my trunk. As I approached the front door, I noticed the peeling paint and loose gutter that had been that way since my last visit months ago. I made a mental note to hire someone to address these issues, another expense they would never know about or appreciate. Mom opened the door before I could knock, her face tense, despite her attempt at a smile. Finally, she said by way of greeting, "I need help in the kitchen. Everything is running late." No hug, no happy Thanksgiving, no thank you for driving an hour and bringing half the meal, just immediate demands for assistance. I followed her inside, noticing Dad in his recliner watching football, not bothering to get up. "The prodigal daughter returns," he called out without looking away from the screen. "Happy Thanksgiving to you too, Dad," I replied, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. "Blake and Taylor will be late," Mom informed me as we entered the kitchen. "They had some important meeting this morning about his new business opportunity." Of course they did. Blake was never on time for family functions, yet this was always treated as perfectly acceptable, even admirable if it was business-related. If I had ever been late due to work, the disapproval would have been palpable. "What is the business this time?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral as I unpacked the groceries. Mom brightened immediately. "He is getting into cryptocurrency trading. He says it is going to be huge. Your father and I do not really understand it, but Blake says it is the future." I bit my tongue. Blake had no background in finance or technology. His last 3 businesses had been a dog walking service that lasted 2 weeks, an attempt to become a social media influencer promoting products he got for free, and a sports betting system that had cost him, or rather our parents, thousands of dollars. How interesting, I managed. I brought everything for the sweet potato casserole and 2 pumpkin pies. "I will get started on those." As I worked in the kitchen, Mom hovered nearby, filling me in on neighborhood gossip and complaining about her arthritis. Not once did she ask about my work, my friends, or my life in general. When I mentioned my recent promotion, she nodded distractedly and immediately pivoted to telling me about Blake's girlfriend Taylor and how they might get engaged soon. "They are looking at houses already," she said proudly. "Your brother has big plans." I wondered silently who would be financing these big plans, but kept chopping sweet potatoes. While Mom stepped out to take a phone call, I opened the drawer where they kept takeout menus to find a peeler. Underneath the stack of faded menus, I discovered several bills marked final notice and past due. I quickly flipped through them, my stomach sinking. There was a credit card bill showing a balance of over $7,000, a notice from the electric company threatening disconnection, and medical bills that should have been covered by the insurance I was paying for. They had been accumulating new debt without telling me, all while I was paying their mortgage utilities and giving them spending money each month. Where was all that money going? I slipped the bills back into the drawer as Mom returned, my mind racing. Before I could formulate how to bring this up, I overheard Dad on the phone in the living room, his voice animated with excitement. "That sounds like an amazing opportunity, son," he was saying. "Yes, we are 100% behind you. This could be the big break you have been waiting for." As I continued preparing food, I strained to hear more snippets of the conversation. Phrases like initial investment and guaranteed returns made my blood run cold. It sounded like Blake was pitching yet another scheme and Dad was falling for it completely. When Dad ended the call, he came into the kitchen beaming. Blake might have found the opportunity of a lifetime, he announced. "He just needs some backing to get started." Mom clapped her hands together. "Is that what the meeting is about today? Oh, I knew this one would work out." They exchanged excited looks, completely ignoring the fact that I was standing right there, likely to be the source of this backing they were discussing. "What exactly is this opportunity?" I asked, keeping my voice level. Dad waved his hand dismissively. "It is all very technical. Something about blockchain technology and trading algorithms. Blake understands all that computer stuff." I almost laughed out loud. I was a software engineer at one of the top tech companies in the country, but sure, Blake with his GED and zero technical training understood computer stuff. "Sounds fascinating," I said, turning back to the sweet potatoes. "I would love to hear more details when Blake arrives." The tension in my shoulders was building. I had come today with such hope, bringing gifts and the mortgage paperwork that would free them from their biggest financial burden. Now I was discovering more secrets, more debts, and what sounded like another of Blake's schemes that would inevitably fall on me to finance. Part of me wanted to confront them immediately about the bills I had found and set clear boundaries. The other part desperately wanted just one peaceful family Thanksgiving. Maybe after dinner, when everyone was full and relaxed, I could gently bring up my concerns. Little did I know that peace was not on the menu for this Thanksgiving dinner. The worst was yet to come. By 4:30 in the afternoon, the turkey had been resting for over an hour, the sides were getting cold, and there was still no sign of Blake and Taylor. Mom had called twice, receiving vague reassurances that they were on their way. Dad kept making excuses about traffic and important business meetings, while I silently fumed at the counter, nursing a glass of wine I had brought. When they finally arrived at 5:15, neither carried a dish to contribute or even a bottle of wine. Blake strode in like he was doing us all a favor by gracing us with his presence, Taylor trailing behind him, checking her phone. "Happy Thanksgiving," Blake announced, giving Mom an exaggerated hug. "Sorry we are late." The meeting ran long, but it was totally worth it. "No problem at all, sweetheart," Mom assured him as if we had not been waiting for nearly 2 hours. "We are just glad you are here now." Blake was 35, but dressed like he was still in college in expensive sneakers that probably cost more than my first car and designer jeans with artificial rips. Taylor, a pretty blonde, with perpetually bored expression, wore enough jewelry to open a small boutique. Megan Blake acknowledged me with a nod. No hug, no warm greeting. "Nice of you to join us," I replied, unable to keep all sarcasm from my voice. Dad clapped his hands together. "Let us eat before everything gets cold." We gathered around the dining room table, which Mom had decorated with the autumn-themed centerpiece I had sent the week before. Dad carved the turkey with flourish, giving Blake the largest portion before serving anyone else. The conversation immediately centered on Blake's day. "So, tell us about this meeting," Dad prompted eagerly. Blake launched into a long jargon-filled explanation about cryptocurrency trading bots and proprietary algorithms. As someone who actually worked in technology, I could tell he was stringing together terms he did not fully understand. The business opportunity seemed to involve investors paying for access to an automated trading system that supposedly had incredible returns. The developers showed us the backtesting results. Blake explained, mouth full of mashed potatoes. 300% returns in 6 months. It is literally a money printing machine. "That sounds too good to be true," I commented, unable to help myself. Blake shot me an irritated look. Of course someone like you would say that. Someone like me, I asked. Someone risk-averse. Someone who would rather take the safe route with a corporate job instead of having the vision to see amazing opportunities. Dad nodded in agreement. Your brother has always had an entrepreneurial spirit. Not everyone can see the big picture like he can. I took another sip of wine, reminding myself that confrontation would only ruin dinner. But Taylor decided to jump in. Blake says people in tech are just glorified code monkeys, she said with a smirk. No offense. None taken, I replied coolly. Though this glorified code monkey just got promoted to lead software architect with a team of 20 engineers reporting to me. Mom barely registered my news. Blake, tell us more about how this investment works. Your father and I are so excited for you. For the next 30 minutes, I sat quietly eating while Blake dominated the conversation, explaining his plans to quit his current job, which he had only started 3 months ago, to focus full-time on this new venture. The more he talked, the clearer it became that he needed money, and lots of it, to make this happen. The minimum buy-in is $10,000, he explained. But that gets you lifetime access to the trading system. You literally just set it up and watch the money roll in. That sounds wonderful, Mom gushed. Does not it sound wonderful, Harold? Dad nodded enthusiastically. When do you need to commit? That is the thing, Blake said, his voice taking on the wheedling tone I recognized from childhood when he wanted something. The developer is only taking on 10 more clients before closing it to new investors. I need to let him know by Monday. The table fell silent for a moment, and I could feel what was coming. Megan, Mom began carefully. We were thinking as a family we should support Blake in this opportunity. It could really change things for all of us. How exactly were you thinking of supporting him, I asked, though I already knew the answer. Dad cleared his throat. Well, we thought since you have that big corporate job and all those stock options you are always talking about, you might want to invest in your brother's future. I set down my fork. I do not recall talking about my stock options with you. Ever. Mom waved her hand dismissively. You know what he means. You have always been so blessed financially. Family supports family. Blake jumped in. Actually, I have already been approved for a loan. I just need someone to co-sign. The bank wants extra security since it is for a business venture. And there it was. The real reason for this Thanksgiving gathering. Not to give thanks as a family, but to pressure me into putting my credit on the line for another of Blake's doomed schemes. How much is the loan, I asked, my voice steady despite the anger building inside me. $9,600, Blake replied. Barely anything for someone like you. I looked around the table at my family. Mom's expectant face, Dad's entitled expression, Blake's smug confidence, and Taylor's barely concealed disdain. Something inside me finally snapped. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. I have been paying your mortgage for 3 years. I pay all your utilities. I pay for Mom's medical treatments and insurance. I give you spending money every month. And now you want me to co-sign a loan for nearly $10,000 for Blake's cryptocurrency scheme. Dad frowned. There is no need to list everything like that. Family helps family. That is what we do. Is it, I asked? Because from where I am sitting it seems like I help and the rest of you take. Blake rolled his eyes. Classic Megan, always keeping score. I am not keeping score, I replied, my voice rising slightly. But I am noticing a pattern. And I found those bills in the kitchen drawer. The ones you have been hiding from me while I pay all your other expenses. Mom's face flushed. You were snooping through our things. I was looking for a peeler, I corrected her. But that is not the point. The point is you have been accumulating more debt without telling me while I have been supporting this entire household. No one asked you to support us, Dad said defensively. I stared at him in disbelief. Are you serious right now? Mom called me crying about losing the house. You both called me repeatedly about medical bills you could not pay. You literally asked me to take over your expenses. That was temporary, Dad insisted, until we got back on our feet. It has been 3 years, I pointed out. 3 years of me paying for everything while Blake contributes nothing. And now you want me to co-sign a loan for his latest scheme. Blake stood up, his face red. It is not a scheme. You think you are so much better than me with your fancy job and your condescending attitude. I do not think I am better than you, Blake. I just think I have been enabling this family's dysfunction for too long. The table fell silent, tension thick in the air. I took a deep breath and continued. I came here today with good news. I paid off your mortgage. Completely. The house is yours, free and clear. I brought the paperwork to surprise you. I also brought gifts to show my appreciation for our family. But instead of gratitude, all I get is another demand for money. Mom at least had the grace to look shocked. You paid off the mortgage, the whole thing. Yes, I said, because I care about this family despite how you treat me. But I am done being the family bank while being treated like an outsider. The revelation about the mortgage hung in the air for only a moment before Dad found his voice. Well, that was your choice, he said, his tone dismissive rather than grateful. No one put a gun to your head and made you pay our bills. I stared at him momentarily speechless. I had just told them I had paid off their entire house, a gesture worth over $100,000, and that was his response. I helped because I love you, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Because that is what family does. But love goes both ways. Respect goes both ways. Blake snorted. Here comes the lecture from St. Megan. I turned to my brother, deciding it was time for complete honesty. Blake, in the past 5 years, I have given this family over $200,000. That includes paying off credit card debts that were mostly from your failed businesses. It includes covering bounced checks you wrote to Mom and Dad. It includes the down payment for the car you totaled last year. You make it sound like I am some kind of mooch, Blake said defensively. If the shoe fits, I replied. When was the last time you contributed anything to this household? When was the last time you paid for a family dinner or helped with Mom's medical bills? Not everyone makes tech money, he shot back. This is not about how much money you make, I explained, trying to keep my composure. This is about the fact that I give and give and give, and no one even says thank you. Instead, you all act like I owe you more. Mom reached across the table to pat my hand. Sweetheart, of course we appreciate what you do. But you have to understand Blake has different gifts. He is trying to build something. And what am I doing, I asked. Do you think my career just happened by accident? I worked hard for my success. I put myself through college on scholarships while working part-time. I spent nights and weekends learning new programming languages and building projects. I earned every promotion through dedication and skill. Dad waved his hand dismissively. No one is saying you did not work for what you have, but you have always had an easier time with school and jobs. Blake is more of a visionary. I could not believe what I was hearing. After all these years, they still could not acknowledge my accomplishments, or see Blake for what he was, a serial failure who refused to take responsibility for his actions. A visionary who needs his little sister to bail him out of every mess, I said, unable to hold back. Blake slammed his hand on the table, making the dishes rattle. You think you are so perfect. Just because you can write some computer code does not make you better than me. This is not about being better than anyone, I insisted. This is about basic fairness and gratitude. I am happy to help my family, but I am tired of being treated like an ATM while being told my accomplishments do not matter. Taylor, who had been relatively quiet, decided to chime in. Maybe if you had a boyfriend instead of just your job, you would not be so bitter about helping your family. I turned to her, speechless for a moment at the unprovoked attack. Excuse me. Taylor is just saying that maybe you focus too much on money and career, Mom said, somehow making it worse. There is more to life than work, Megan. Like what I asked? Like sitting around waiting for handouts from your successful daughter while praising your unemployable son? Dad's face darkened. That is enough. You do not talk about your brother that way in my house. Your house, I repeated. The house I just paid off for you. The house I have been paying the mortgage on for 3 years. See, there you go again, throwing it in our faces, Blake exclaimed. If you help family just to lord it over them later, that is not really help, is it? I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. This conversation was spiraling out of control, and nothing productive would come from more shouting. Let me be clear, I said calmly. I will not be co-signing any loan for Blake. Not now, not ever. The table fell silent. Dad's face turned an alarming shade of red. After everything we have done for you, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. After raising you, supporting you, being there for you, this is how you repay us. By refusing to help your brother when he has a real chance at success. What exactly have you done for me lately? I asked, the words escaping before I could stop them. When was the last time either of you supported me in any way, financially or emotionally? We are your parents, Mom exclaimed. We gave you life. And I have been giving you a lifestyle you could not afford otherwise, I countered. I do not regret helping, but I do regret allowing myself to be taken for granted. Dad stood up suddenly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Get out, he bellowed. Paying bills does not make you family. The words hit me like a physical blow. After everything I had done, after all the sacrifices I had made, this was what it came down to. I was not family. I was just a checkbook. Mom reached over to touch Dad's arm. Harold, calm down. She does not understand. Then she leaned toward me and whispered, though everyone at the table could still hear. You are just jealous of your brother. You always have been. Something cold and clear washed over me in that moment. Years of suppressed feelings crystallized into perfect clarity. This dynamic would never change. I would never be valued for who I was, only for what I could provide. I smiled, feeling strangely calm. Then let him pay the $9,600. I stood up, smoothing my napkin and placing it beside my plate. I will get my things. You cannot just leave on Thanksgiving, Mom protested. I can and I will, I replied. And I will be taking my financial support with me. What is that supposed to mean? Dad demanded. It means I am done, I explained. No more mortgage payments, though, that is already taken care of. No more utility bills. No more insurance premiums. No more monthly deposits. You are on your own, just like I have been all along. Blake laughed nervously. You are just saying that because you are angry. You will calm down. I looked at my brother, seeing him clearly, perhaps for the first time. No, Blake. I am done. Completely done. Dad pointed toward the door. If that is how you feel, then go. We do not need your charity or your attitude. I walked calmly to the coat closet and retrieved my jacket. I went to my purse and pulled out an envelope. Here are the mortgage documents, showing the house is paid off, and in your names, I said, placing it on the side table. Consider it my last gift to this family. As I headed for the door, I turned back one last time. The saddest part is, I came here today hoping for a simple thank you. That is all I ever wanted from any of you. Just acknowledgement that my contributions mattered, that I mattered. Guilt trips do not look good on you, Megan, Blake called after me. I did not respond. There was nothing left to say. I walked out the door, closing it firmly behind me. In my car, I sat for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. I had just been disowned by my own father for refusing to co-sign a loan. My mother had accused me of jealousy rather than acknowledging years of inequity. My brother had shown not an ounce of gratitude for all I had done. As painful as this moment was, it was also strangely liberating. No more walking on eggshells. No more one-way giving. No more being taken for granted. I started the engine and pulled away from the house, not looking back. It was time to shut everything down, to cut the financial cord that had bound me to their dysfunction for far too long. The 20-minute drive to the nearest hotel passed in a blur. My hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel as the full weight of what had just happened settled over me. I had been effectively disowned by my family on Thanksgiving of all days for refusing to continue enabling their financial irresponsibility. When I reached the hotel parking lot, I sat in my car for several minutes trying to process my emotions. Anger, hurt, relief, and grief all competed for dominance. The family I had sacrificed so much for had shown their true colors, and they were uglier than I had allowed myself to acknowledge. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts and calls from my mother, but I ignored them. Instead, I called the one person I knew would understand. Alicia, are you busy? I need to talk. 20 minutes later, I was settled in a generic hotel room, phone on speaker, as I recounted the disaster to my best friend. They said, "What?" Alicia exclaimed when I told her about my father's outburst. "After everything you have done for them. Are you kidding me?" "I wish I was," I replied, lying back on the hotel bed and staring at the ceiling. You were right all along. They never saw me as anything but a walking ATM. I never wanted to be right about this, Alicia said softly. But honey, this might be the best thing that could have happened. You needed to see them clearly. I know, I admitted, but it still hurts. Of course it does. They are your family. You love them even if they do not deserve it. But what are you going to do now? I sat up, resolve hardening within me. I am going to follow through on what I said. I am cutting them off financially. Completely. Good for you, Alicia encouraged. Do you need help figuring out the logistics? Actually, yes, I said, reaching for my laptop. I have so many automatic payments set up for them, I need to make sure I do not miss anything. For the next hour, Alicia stayed on the phone as I methodically worked through my financial entanglements with my family. First, I logged into my bank account and canceled all recurring transfers to my parents' accounts. Next came the automatic bill payments I had set up for their utilities, insurance policies, and credit cards. The mortgage is already paid off, at least I noted as I worked. That was going to be my big Thanksgiving surprise for them. $120,000 paid in full. And they could not even say thank you. Their loss, Alicia said firmly. That was an incredibly generous thing you did, and they did not deserve it. As midnight approached, I had canceled nearly everything, but there were still loose ends. My parents were authorized users on one of my credit cards for emergencies, which had somehow included Blake's girlfriend's birthday present last month. I called the credit card company and had them removed and new cards issued to me only. I also sent an email to my family attorney explaining my decision to end financial support and requesting documentation of all previous payments for tax purposes. It felt cold and businesslike, but I needed to protect myself. What about their phones? Alicia asked. Are they on your plan? Yes, I realized. The whole family. Dad, Mom, Blake, even Taylor somehow. I have been paying for a family plan with unlimited data for all of them. I logged into the mobile carrier's website and removed them from my account, though I paid for one more month of service to give them time to make other arrangements. I was angry, but not cruel. By 1 a.m, I had dismantled nearly every financial connection to my family. The only thing remaining was their health insurance, which I decided to keep paying for 3 more months to give them time to find alternatives. Despite everything, I could not bear the thought of my mother losing access to her arthritis treatments. I think that is everything, I said, closing my laptop with finality. I feel. I do not know how I feel. Exhausted, sad, relieved, all of the above, Alicia suggested. Yes, to all of that I confirmed. Plus terrified. I have been defining myself as their support system for so long. Who am I without that responsibility? You are Megan Wilson, badass software architect, who just set a healthy boundary for the first time in her adult life, Alicia replied, and I am incredibly proud of you. After ending the call with Alicia, I took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away some of the tension in my shoulders. When I finally crawled into the hotel bed, I expected to lie awake, wrestling with regret and second thoughts. Instead, I fell into the deepest sleep I had experienced in years. The weight of financial responsibility for 3 additional adults had been lifted, and my body recognized the liberation before my mind could fully process it. I was awakened at 7:30 the next morning by my phone ringing incessantly. I had blocked my family's numbers temporarily for my mental health, but they had apparently figured out how to call from other phones. I let everything go to voicemail, not ready to engage yet. When I finally checked my messages, there were 16 missed calls and 23 text messages. Most were from my mother, their tone evolving from angry. I cannot believe you stormed out on Thanksgiving to panicked. Why are we getting emails about our phone plan being canceled to desperate? Please call us back, we need to talk about the mortgage and bills. There were also several voicemails from Blake, each more indignant than the last, culminating in threats to tell everyone what a terrible daughter and sister you really are. The most revealing message came from my father, who had called from a neighbor's phone. Megan, this little tantrum has gone far enough. We all say things we do not mean when we are upset. It is time to come back and work this out like adults. Your mother is very distressed about the mortgage situation. Not a word of apology. Not a hint of recognition that he had told me I was not family. Just an expectation that I would come crawling back and resume my role as the family bank. I texted my mother only. The mortgage is paid in full as a gift. The paperwork is in the envelope I left. All other financial support has ended as of last night. I need space and will contact you when I am ready. Please respect my boundaries. Then I blocked their numbers again, ordered room service breakfast, and began looking for a new apartment farther from my family home. It was time for a fresh start in more ways than one. 3 days after Thanksgiving, I returned to my parents' house to collect some childhood mementos and personal items I had stored there. I had called a mutual family friend to let them know when I would be coming, hoping to avoid a confrontation. I should have known better. As I pulled into the driveway, my stomach dropped at the sight of a police cruiser parked in front of the house. For a moment, I wondered if something had happened to my parents, but that concern quickly evaporated when I saw my father gesturing animatedly to an officer on the front porch, my mother crying beside him. I parked and approached cautiously. The officer turned to me as I walked up the path. "Are you Megan Wilson?" he asked. "Yes," I replied, confusion evident in my voice. "Is everything okay?" My father pointed at me accusingly. "That is her. She stole from us. She promised to pay our mortgage, and now she is trying to take our house." I stared at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about? I paid off your mortgage. The house is yours." The second officer, who had been standing by the cruiser, approached with a notepad. "We received a call about financial elder abuse and theft. Can you explain your relationship to these individuals?" "They are my parents," I said, still processing the absurdity of the situation. "And I have not stolen anything. In fact, I have been supporting them financially for years." "She controls all our accounts," my mother wailed. "And now she has cut us off without warning. We cannot even use our phones." I took a deep breath, determined to remain calm. "Officers, I have documentation of everything. I have been voluntarily paying their bills because they were in financial difficulty. I recently decided to stop that support after a family disagreement. There is no crime here, just a family dispute." "She is lying." Blake emerged from the house, Taylor trailing behind him. "She has been manipulating our parents for years, making them dependent on her so she could control them." The sheer audacity of his statement left me momentarily speechless. "I have financial records," I finally said to the officers. "I can show you bank statements, receipts, everything. I paid off their mortgage as a gift. I have been paying their utilities insurance and giving them spending money. All voluntarily." I reached for my phone and pulled up emails from my financial advisor and family attorney documenting the mortgage payoff and history of support. "May I asked, offering my phone to the officer with the notepad. He reviewed the documents, scrolling through with a frown. After a few minutes, he handed my phone back. "This appears to be a civil matter, not criminal," he said, turning to my parents. "If you have financial disputes, you need to address them through proper legal channels. There is no evidence of theft or abuse here." "But she cut off our phones," my mother protested. "We have no way to contact anyone." I paid for 1 more month of service, I explained to the officers. "I have the receipt showing payment through December 26th. They have time to get their own plan." The officers exchanged glances. "As I said, this is a civil matter," the first one repeated. "We cannot intervene in family financial disagreements unless there is clear evidence of a crime." As they prepared to leave, my father became more agitated. "You cannot just leave. She has stolen from us." "Sir, please calm down," the second officer warned. "Based on the documentation, we have seen your daughter has been supporting you financially, not stealing from you. If you continue to make false reports, you could face charges yourself." My father fell silent, his face red with anger and embarrassment. Several neighbors had come out to watch the drama unfolding, some not even pretending they were not listening intently. As the police drove away, I turned to my parents. "I cannot believe you called the police on me, after everything I have done for you." "You left us no choice," Blake said, stepping forward. "You cut us off without warning. Mom and Dad have no way to pay their bills." "The house is paid for," I reminded them. "I paid it off completely. The only bills they have now are utilities, food, and basics. Dad gets Social Security. Mom has her part-time job. They managed before I started helping, they can manage now." "This is elder abuse," Blake insisted. "They are in their 60s. They cannot be expected to suddenly support themselves." I laughed, though. There was no humor in it. Elder abuse. I gave them hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past 3 years. I paid off their home. I bought them cars, paid for vacations, covered medical bills. And when I finally say enough after being told I am not family, that is abuse, Blake turned to the small crowd of neighbors that had gathered. See how she treats her own parents. After all, they have done for her. One of the neighbors, Mrs. Patterson, who had lived next door for decades, stepped forward. Blake Wilson, I have watched this situation for years. Your sister has been here every week bringing groceries, fixing things around the house, taking your mother to doctor appointments. Where have you been? Blake's face flushed. I have my own life, my own problems. We all do, Mrs. Patterson replied coldly. But most of us do not expect our siblings to solve them for us. I felt a rush of gratitude toward Mrs. Patterson. At least someone had noticed my contributions. I just came to collect some of my things, I said, turning back to my parents. Then I will leave you alone as you requested on Thanksgiving. We did not mean it, my mother said, her voice small. Your father was just upset. He told me I was not family, I reminded her. You said I was jealous of Blake. Those words do not just disappear. I walked past them into the house, heading straight for my old bedroom where I had boxes of childhood mementos stored. Blake followed me, continuing his tirade. You cannot just cut us off like this. Mom needs her medications. Dad needs his heart pills. I paid for their health insurance for 3 more months, I said as I gathered my belongings. I am not a monster, Blake. I am just done being taken advantage of. Nobody was taking advantage of you, he insisted. Family helps family. I stopped and looked at him directly. When have you ever helped? When have you contributed anything to this family besides problems and debt? He had no answer. As I carried boxes to my car, my phone began ringing with calls from extended family. Word had spread quickly. My Aunt Patricia called first, and to my surprise, she was completely supportive. I have watched how they treat you for years, she said. It is about time you stood up for yourself. Harold was always too indulgent with Blake and Diana, enables both of them. But she was the exception. My Uncle Robert called next, berating me for abandoning my family. 2 cousins sent lengthy texts explaining how I was tearing the family apart and needed to reconsider my selfish actions. By that evening, the family drama had spilled onto social media. Blake posted a long, self-pitying status about toxic family members who use money to control others without naming me directly but making it obvious who he meant. Several relatives commented with supportive messages to him, having heard only his side of the story. My college friends and work colleagues, however, rallied around me. When I finally explained to my team why I needed a few personal days, my manager Sophia was incredulous. You have been supporting your entire family for years, and they called the police on you for stopping. That is insane, she said during our video call. Take all the time you need. And Megan, for what it is worth, you did the right thing. The next blow came 2 days later when my mother called from a hospital number, leaving a tearful message about being admitted with chest pains. The doctors say it is stress-related, she sobbed. I just do not know how we are going to manage without you. I called the hospital directly to check on her condition and spoke with her doctor, who confirmed she had experienced anxiety-induced symptoms but was in no real danger. When I asked if she would be discharged that day, he said she was already preparing to leave. It was another manipulation tactic, and a particularly low one. Despite the chaos, despite the emotional manipulation and public attacks, I held firm to my decision. Each attempt to make me feel guilty only reinforced that I had made the right choice. The family dynamic had been unhealthy for years, and my financial support had only enabled it to continue. As difficult as this period was, it was also strangely empowering. For the first time in my adult life, I was putting myself first. I was setting boundaries and sticking to them despite the pressure to give in, and I was discovering just how strong I really was. 6 months after the Thanksgiving disaster, I stood in my new apartment 15 miles further from my parents' home, surveying the space that was entirely mine. Large windows let in abundant natural light, highlighting the minimal but comfortable furniture I had chosen. A far cry from the cluttered family home where I had spent so many tense holidays. My therapist, Dr. Linda, whom I had started seeing weekly after the fallout, had encouraged me to create a space that reflected my own tastes and preferences, something I had never really done before. My previous apartment had been utilitarian, a place to sleep between work and family obligations. This new home was an expression of myself, from the modern art on the walls to the state-of-the-art kitchen, where I was learning to cook for pleasure rather than duty. "How are you feeling about the upcoming call with your mother?" Dr. Linda had asked during our session earlier that day. "Nervous," I admitted, "but ready. The boundaries we discussed feel right." After 3 months of complete separation from my family, I had cautiously reopened limited communication with my mother. Our first conversation had been stilted and tense, with her alternating between guilt trips and desperate pleas for financial help. I had remained firm but kind, explaining that our relationship needed to be based on emotional connection, not financial transactions. Over time, and perhaps out of necessity, she had begun to accept the new reality. Today would be our first video call, a step toward potential reconciliation, but on my terms. My phone rang at the agreed-upon time. Mom's face appeared on screen, looking older somehow, the past months having left their mark. "Hi, Mom," I said, keeping my tone neutral but not cold. "Megan," she replied. "You look well. I like your hair shorter like that." A small thing but significant. She had actually noticed something about me, made a personal observation, instead of immediately asking for something. "Thanks," I said. "How have you been managing?" She sighed. "It has been an adjustment. Your father took a part-time job at the hardware store. I picked up more hours at the department store. We are making ends meet barely." I nodded, feeling a twinge of guilt but pushing it aside. Dr. Linda and I had worked hard on distinguishing between healthy guilt and manipulated guilt. "And how is your arthritis?" I asked. "The new medication is helping. The insurance you kept paying until March gave us time to get on a state program. It does not cover everything, but it is something." Another small victory. They had found solutions without me. "I am glad to hear that," I said sincerely. "And how is Blake?" Her expression tightened slightly. "He and Taylor broke up. The cryptocurrency thing fell apart, as I am sure you expected. He is living with his friend Marcus and working at a call center." I resisted the urge to say "I told you so." That would not help rebuild anything. "Change can be hard," I offered instead, "but sometimes necessary." Mom was quiet for a moment. "Megan, I owe you an apology. What I said at Thanksgiving about you being jealous of Blake, that was wrong. I see now how unfair we were to you for so long. I had not expected this." In all our recent communications, she had avoided direct acknowledgement of the Thanksgiving conflict. "Thank you for saying that," I replied, emotion making my voice slightly unsteady. "That means a lot to me." "Your father is still," she trailed off. "Well, you know how stubborn he can be. But even he admits privately that we took you for granted." "Is he willing to admit that to me?" I asked. She looked away. "He will get there. He misses you, even if he will not say it." It was not the full reconciliation I might have once hoped for, but it was honest. And honesty was what we needed to build something healthier, if that was even possible. Over the next few months, I continued my journey of healing and rediscovery. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during years of prioritizing family obligations. Alicia and I took a weekend trip to the coast, something I had always been too busy or financially stretched to do before. At work, freed from the constant drain on my finances and emotional energy, I flourished. My team completed a major project ahead of schedule, earning recognition from company leadership. I was able to focus fully on my career without the nagging worry about family emergencies and financial demands. I also found purpose in helping others. Drawing on my experience, I developed a financial literacy workshop that I presented at community centers and libraries. Setting boundaries, financial wellness, and family dynamics became surprisingly popular, with many attendees sharing stories similar to mine. I thought I was the only one, a woman named Rachel told me after one workshop. "My siblings have been living off my success for years, and I never knew how to say no without feeling guilty." "The guilt does not go away entirely," I admitted to her. "But it gets easier to recognize when it is being used as a tool to manipulate you." My relationship with my parents evolved into something more structured and limited, but also more honest. We met once a month for lunch at a neutral restaurant with clear start and end times. I did not discuss my finances, and they did not ask for help. Sometimes these meetings were uncomfortable, but occasionally there were moments of genuine connection that had been buried under financial stress for years. Blake and I remained distant. He had reached out a few times, always with thinly veiled requests for money disguised as apologies. I responded politely but firmly, maintaining the boundary I had established. Perhaps someday we would find a way toward a real relationship, but for now, distance was healthiest for both of us. The most profound change was in how I viewed myself and my worth. For too long, I had measured my value to my family by what I could provide materially. Dr. Linda helped me see that this metric was fundamentally flawed. Relationships based on transactions are business arrangements, not family bonds, she explained during one session. Real family loves you for who you are, not what you can give them. I found this truth reflected in the new relationships I was building and the old friendships I was nurturing. People who valued my time, my thoughts, my presence, not just my wallet. People who gave as much as they received. 1 year after the Thanksgiving that changed everything, I hosted a chosen family dinner in my apartment. Alicia was there along with colleagues who had become friends, neighbors who had welcomed me to my new building, and even Aunt Patricia, the one blood relative who had supported my decision from the beginning. As we sat around my table sharing food and laughter, I realized that family truly is defined by love and respect, not DNA or financial obligation. The people who show up for you, who see you clearly and value you completely, those are your real family. I had lost something painful that Thanksgiving day, but I had gained something infinitely more valuable: self-respect, healthy boundaries, and relationships based on mutual care rather than one-sided giving. The journey was not over. I still had moments of doubt, days when the ingrained sense of responsibility for my parents felt overwhelming. But I had learned that helping is not the same as enabling, and that true support empowers others to stand on their own rather than creating dependency. If you have ever found yourself in a similar situation, caught in a cycle of giving that leaves you emotionally drained and financially strained, know that you are not alone. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for your well-being and ultimately for healthier relationships with those around you. Family should lift you up, not drag you down. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did you handle the fallout? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who is struggling with similar challenges. And if you found value in my journey, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about finding strength through difficult family situations. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve relationships that honor your worth beyond what you can provide materially.